If you're like me, then you can feel yourself being a bit divided at times. And this current crisis is making me see this even more than most days. Some days I'm in the dumps, and then some days I'm happy and carefree. Some days I work hard, and then some days I'm a bit lazy. Some days I'm loving, and then some days I'm just selfish. And then some days it's a mixture of all of those things. And what this highlights is that as humans, we're complex, and really we're divided in who we are. But this aspect of who we are as humans is something that we don't share with God. Similarly to how we considered how God is independent when we are dependent, or how God is eternal when we are bound in time, God is undivided and we are divided. And what we're talking about when we say God is undivided is the unity that he has in himself, and that he is not made up of parts, nor could he be made up of parts because of who he is, being God. So, we shouldn't think about God as being a bunch of his attributes added together. So, for instance, we know that God is loving, that he is merciful, that he is just, that he is holy, that he is everywhere, that he is eternal, he is independent, and so on and so forth. But if we had all of the attributes of God and we listed them out, and we wouldn't then have a recipe for what God is. Right? We couldn't combine all those things and say, yes, this is God because we have all of the parts of God. No, God is not made out of parts. Though he does have attributes, and those attributes are emphasized in Scripture in various places, the Bible never speaks of one of those attributes being in priority or greater than another one of those attributes. No, every attribute he has is who he is. And this is hard to understand. And something that might come to mind is the verse in 1 John chapter 4 that says, God is love. And this is often what we think about when we think about, well, what is God? Well, God is love. But we have to set that aside. What we also see in the book of 1 John, in chapter 1, where it says God is light. So, what do we do when we come across this? Do we get confused and say, well, this is a contradiction? No, that's not the answer. God is light, and God is love, and he is entirely each one of those things. And this is very important. The answer is that God is not divided, and he's part love, and he's part light, and he's part mercy, and he's part justice. No. God is all of his attributes perfectly and always. We can't set aside one attribute of God to highlight another. And the Bible never does this either. So what does this do for us? What do we get out of this truth? Well, it affects what we mean when we talk about God and what we think about God and who he is. And a key danger that comes out of this when we don't follow this is that we're tempted to take one of his attributes and put that in priority above his other attributes. So I think the key danger is, and an example that shows how it's easy not to do this, is thinking about the love of God. We often think about the love of God being the biggest part of him, and that if God, his character were divided into a pie, his love would be the big piece, right, and there'd be a bunch of other little pieces throughout. But that's not an accurate representation of who God is. Now, his love is great, and it is a part of who he is, but his love is not to be set against or apart from his justice. And this is something that you'll hear from different people, in that God used to be a just God who punished sinners in the Old Testament, but now he's a loving and a forgiving God. And if we look at this example of the justice of God and the love of God, it's clear where the temptation comes in to set them apart from each other, but the truth is actually the opposite of that they are not set apart from each other, that they are perfectly contained within each other, that God is just and God is love. And the beauty of this is this is what the gospel is it's God's love and his justice in perfect unity together. And that in his justice we deserve death. We deserve hell. But in his love, he sent his son, and his son has taken our place, and he's taken that justice upon himself so that we wouldn't take it upon ourselves. But never in all of eternity past or in all of eternity future has God ceased to be just, or has he ceased to be loving. No, God is undivided. And this is a truth that should cause us to awe and marvel at who God is, along with these other things that we've looked at throughout the past few weeks about these attributes of God that we do not share with him. We're not independent. We're not eternal. We're not unchanging. We're none of those things. But we worship a God who is, and so we should be drawn to marvel at this mighty God. And I pray that this video would help you to do that. I'd encourage you to look at and read the scriptures that are listed down below. And as you do that, think about the attributes of God that you see, and then consider these attributes being in perfect unity in the person of God. And I'd also encourage you to read the article that I've linked down below, as it helps to explain some of this, which is a difficult topic to explain.